Yeah, tzedakah. The Gemara says about tzedakah b'chanunin abazais. I dare you to dare me. That's what the Gemara says. That when it comes to mitzvahs, we say that even though there is a concept of schar, you do a mitzvah, you get a reward. But you don't necessarily know how the reward is going to come and when the reward is going to come. There's an interesting Gemara with a Rashi that says that there's a concept called iyun tefillah. One of the ideas that the Chazal say everybody violates is called iyun tefillah. Iyun tefillah is understood simply to mean that you don't have proper kavanah when you daven. But there is a Rashi, I think, in Masechta Brachas, who says iyun tefillah means when you daven to Hashem and you wait and watch and see how He's going to fulfill your bracha. And the rule is that when you pray to God and you sit around and wait for Him to give you an answer, it doesn't come. It only happens when you're not paying attention. Hashem always finds pathways. In other words, everything is woven into the fabric of nature. Said in other words, you can always deny that He answered your prayer. Tzedakah is the exception. You give tzedakah, the Eibishter promises, b'chanunin nabazais, challenge me, give extra tzedakah, aser b'shvil shetaz asher. If you give extra tzedakah, there's going to be extra ashir, there's going to be extra schad. There's a Gemara also, a Gemara, maybe it's in Masechta Baba Basra, at Rabbi Yochanan says that if the Eibishter wouldn't say this, we would not be able to say it because it's Pashat Chutzpahdik. But the Gemara says, based on the Pasuk, Malva Havaya Chenin Dal, which means that when you give tzedakah, you're giving Hashem alone with just to repay. Everything is His. And the Gemara also in Baba Basra, where Rabbi Akiva was asked, if Hashem loves poor people, why does He not sustain them? And Rabbi Akiva said, because He wants there should be enough tzedakah in the world. He wants there should be goodness. And the poor exist, so the rich should be able to give. And in conjunction with this, there's a story with the Rebbe Marash, which I've told you before, that the Rebbe Marash needed a lot of money to help a bunch of Jews who were in a very bad situation. But he needed a lot of money. And he really wanted the Jews who could afford it to give above and beyond their means. And they couldn't do it, they didn't want to do it. So he said a maimer, based on this principle of rich and poor, mashpia makabel. And the maimer is published, by the way. Tafish Chavches. And he explained that Hashem made His world that we're all needing each other. The rich need the poor need the rich. And during the course of the maimer, he said very emotionally, Shreit der man, the poor person shouts, why should I be poor? And the rich man should support me. I'll be rich and I'll support the poor man. But he said it with such emotion that the people listening to him were heard him saying, okay, you don't want to be the givers? Fine. You'll become the takers. And then they divvy it up, they give whatever you wanted. So tzedakah is one instance where a person can test HaKadosh Baruch Hu, can challenge HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'chlal, testing Hashem is not part of our program. Our program is to test ourselves. Because, how do I say this to you? To broaden the issue. In other words, now that I answered your question narrowly, that the place where you can test Hashem is in tzedakah, let me broaden the question. Who are we doing a favor when we learn Torah and do mitzvahs? Who are we doing a favor when we have a relationship with God? If our philosophy is, I'm doing God a favor when I keep Shabbos and when I keep kosher and we use the mikveh and we favor Yidden. So then there is this idea, okay, I'm giving you, what are you giving me back? But Chassidus teaches, and frankly so does common sense, that the greatest gift God gave us was Himself. The greatest gift that God gave us was our tzavtza v'chibur, our connection with Him, which is through Torah mitzvahs. So what are you testing Him for? He's testing you. And what does it mean He's testing you? He challenges us. Every challenge is an opportunity for an increased involvement with Him. The greatest blessing in everybody's life is their connection to Hashem. That's where their peace comes from. That's where their joy comes from. That's where their equilibrium comes from. And that's where their hope comes from. Why would you challenge that? The greatest thing the Eibishter gave us is Himself. So we challenge ourselves to do more, to be more in the sphere of Hashem, and the more we're in the sphere of Hashem, the being involved with Him is the greatest blessing. And the fact of the matter is that when we're involved with Him and we have the blessing of Him, the other blessings come as well. They've done all of these studies where they prove that the happiest people in the world are religious people. The happiest people in the world are people who are married to each other, married to the same person for the duration of their lives, and religious people. Why? It comes from sacrifice, it comes from giving up. And the answer is, there is no greater freedom than being a servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's a foolish idea to test him. But the Gemara says, tzedakah, you can still test him.